The stars had always watched in silence. They watched when the first human stepped on the moon. They watched when the first colony ship left Earth. And they watched now, as an alien vessel approached Earth's orbital station, with a message that would change everything. Ambassador Keth Vorel stood at the viewing window of his ship, looking at the blue planet below. His forearms were folded tightly against his chest. His silver scales, once bright with pride, now looked dull and tired. He had not slept in many days. How could he sleep when his world was burning? The Sirathi Collective had existed for 12,000 years. His people had built empires when humans were still living in caves. They had mastered faster-than-light travel when humans were just learning to make fire. And they had looked at humanity with something close to pity when the young species finally reached the stars. Primitive, his father had called them. Give them 1,000 years. Maybe then they will matter. Now Keth Vorel was here, begging those same primitives for help. His assistant, a young female named Yethriel, approached him carefully. Ambassador, the human station has cleared us for docking. They seem surprised by our visit. Of course they are surprised, Keth Vorel said quietly. We have never come to them before. Not once in 500 years. We always made them come to us. Perhaps they will refuse to see us, Yethriel said. There was fear in her voice. After how we treated them, then we will die, Keth Vorel replied simply. Along with everyone else, the docking process was smooth. Human technology was basic compared to Sirathi systems, but it worked well enough. When the airlock opened, Keth Vorel was greeted by a small group of human officials. They wore simple gray uniforms. Their faces showed confusion, curiosity, and something else. Was it suspicion? Ambassador Keth Vorel, said the woman at the front. She was tall for a human, with dark hair turning gray at the edges. Her name tag read, Director Chen. This is unexpected. The Sirathi Collective has never sent a representative to Earth before. There has never been a reason before, Keth Vorel admitted. The words were hard to say. His pride fought against every syllable. Now there is. Director Chen studied him for a long moment. You look tired, Ambassador. When did you last rest? The simple question caught him off guard. He had expected coldness. He had expected revenge for centuries of dismissal. Instead, this human was asking about his health. I do not remember, he said honestly. Then let us find you a place to sit down, Director Chen said. You can tell us why you are here. They led him through the station. It was functional but not impressive. The walls were plain metal. The lights were simple white panels. Everything was designed for purpose, not beauty. Keth Vorel had seen human stations before from the outside. He had never bothered to look inside. Why would he? What could primitives possibly have that would interest him? The meeting room was small. A round table sat in the center with chairs around it. Director Chen gestured for him to sit. Water was brought. Food was offered. He refused the food but drank the water. His throat was very dry. Now, Director Chen said, sitting across from him. Tell us. Keth Vorel took a deep breath. The Galactic Concord has fallen. Silence filled the room. The humans looked at each other with shock. Fallen? Director Chen repeated. The entire Concord? 47 species? Thousands of worlds? Not fallen completely, Keth Vorel corrected himself. Not yet. But we have lost. Our fleets are destroyed. Our strongest worlds are occupied or burned. The Vorax dominion came from beyond the galactic rim, and nothing we have can stop them. He pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a map of the galaxy. Large sections were colored in red. This is Vorax territory now, he said. 3 months ago, this area was free. 6 months ago, we did not know the Vorax existed. They came from the darkness between galaxies. They came with weapons we cannot understand and ships that do not follow the laws of physics. Director Chen leaned forward, studying the map. We received reports of fighting near the rim, but nothing suggested it was this serious. The Concord tried to keep it secret, Keth Vorel said bitterly. Pride. Foolish pride. We thought we could handle it ourselves. We thought if we threw enough ships at the problem, it would go away. We were wrong. How many ships have you lost? 14,000 capital vessels, countless smaller craft, 7 billion soldiers, sailors, and civilians. And the Vorax keep coming. They do not stop. They do not negotiate. They do not rest. Another human spoke up. A military officer with many medals on his chest. What do they want? Territory? Resources? Slaves? We do not know, Kethvorl admitted. They have not told us. They simply destroy everything in their path and move on to the next target. Why come to us? Director Chen asked. Humanity has no seat on the Concord Council. You rejected our application 3 times. You called us too young, too primitive, too dangerous. The words cut deep because they were true. Kethvorl remembered voting against humanity himself. He remembered laughing at their crude ships and basic weapons. He remembered saying they would never amount to anything important. Because we have heard stories, he said quietly. Stories? Legends, perhaps. Rumors. Whispers that travel through trading posts and smuggler dens. Stories about humanity. Director Chen's expression did not change. What kind of stories? Kethvorl hesitated. This was the moment. This was why he had come. If the stories were false, he had wasted precious time. If they were true, stories that say you are not what you appear to be, that the ships you show the galaxy are not your real ships, that somewhere, hidden from everyone, humanity has built something else, something powerful, something that could fight the Vorax. The room went very quiet. Director Chen smiled, but it was not a warm smile. Those are just stories, Ambassador. Surely you know better than to believe rumors. I know that my people are dying, Kethvorl said. His voice cracked with emotion. I know that my homeworld burns. I know that my children are hiding in underground shelters, waiting for death to come. I know that the Concord has no ships left to send, no weapons left to fire, no hope left to give, and I know that I would believe any story, follow any legend, beg any enemy, if it meant saving my people. He stood up from his chair and did something no Sarathi had done before a human in 500 years. He bowed. Not a small bow of polite greeting, but a deep bow of total submission. His forehead touched the table. I am begging, he said. The Sarathi Collective is begging. The Galactic Concord is begging. If the stories are true, please help us. If they are false, then forgive an old fool his desperation and let me die with some small dignity. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Director Chen stood up. Wait here, Ambassador. I need to make some calls. She left the room. The other humans stayed, but they did not speak. They simply watched him with unreadable expressions. Kethvorl remained standing. He did not know what else to do. Hours passed. Water was brought again. Food was offered again. This time, he accepted both. He had no appetite, but he needed strength for whatever came next. Yethriel sat beside him, her young face full of worry. Ambassador, what if they say no? Then, we tried, he said. That is all we can do. But the humans, they have every reason to hate us. We treated them so badly. Yes, we did. Kethvorl looked at his assistant with tired eyes. And if they turn us away, I will not blame them. We would deserve it. The door opened. Director Chen walked in, followed by several new faces. One of them was very old, a woman with white hair and a face covered in wrinkles. She walked slowly, but with purpose. Despite her age, there was something in her eyes that commanded attention. Something hard, something dangerous. Ambassador Kethvorl, Director Chen said. This is Admiral Helena Zhang. Kethvorl studied the old woman. An admiral? She looked like she should be resting in a comfortable home, not commanding ships. You are military? He asked. I was, Admiral Zhang said. Her voice was stronger than her body looked. I retired 30 years ago. I thought my fighting days were over. Why are you here now? Admiral Zhang smiled. It was a strange smile, filled with sadness and something else. Excitement? Anticipation? Because of a phone call I received 2 hours ago. A phone call I never expected to receive. A phone call that used a code phrase I have not heard since I was a young woman. I do not understand. No, you do not. Admiral Zhang sat down across from him. But you will. Tell me, Ambassador, how much do you know about human history? Kethvorl shook his head. Very little. Your species is young. Your history is short. Short, yes, but busy. Admiral Zhang folded her hands on the table. In our short history, we have fought thousands of wars. We have killed billions of our own kind. We have invented weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We have stood at the edge of extinction many times, and somehow, we always pulled back. I fail to see how this is relevant. When we reached the stars and met other species, we learned something important. The galaxy is not friendly. The Concord called us primitive, but we saw what the Concord truly was. A loose alliance of species that would betray each other the moment it became convenient. A collection of empires built on ancient wars and old hatreds. A galaxy where the strong take what they want, and the weak suffer. That is, not entirely inaccurate, Keth Vorel admitted. So we made a decision. Admiral Zhang's eyes grew hard. We would not be weak, but we would not show our strength either. We would let the galaxy think we were harmless. We would smile at insults. We would accept rejection. We would build small fleets of simple ships and pretend that was all we had. Keth Vorel's heart began to beat faster. And in secret, we prepared for the worst day imaginable. A day when some threat would rise that endangered not just humanity, but everyone. A day when the galaxy would need saving. You are telling me the stories are true? Admiral Zhang stood up. Come with me, Ambassador. I think it is time you saw something. They took a shuttle away from the station. It was a small vessel, clearly civilian. Nothing special about it. But when the pilot entered a specific code, something changed. The shuttle dove toward the moon, toward a section that was supposed to be empty. Luna Base 7 does not exist on any map, Admiral Zhang explained. It was built 400 years ago, expanded continuously since then, and has never been seen by any non-human eye. 400 years? But that is almost from the beginning of your space age. Yes, we started preparing early. The shuttle landed in an underground hangar. The doors were enormous, large enough for ships much bigger than their small craft. Armed guards in advanced armor stood at every entrance. Their weapons were like nothing Keth Vorel had ever seen. They walked through corridors carved from the moon's rock. The walls were covered with screens showing ship designs, weapon systems, deployment plans. Everything was written in human languages, but Keth Vorel could understand enough to know he was looking at military technology far beyond anything the Concord possessed. How? He whispered. How did you hide this? Carefully, Admiral Zhang said. Every person who worked here took an oath. Every family member was sworn to secrecy. Generations of humans lived and died in hidden bases across our solar system, never able to tell anyone what they sacrificed for. They are heroes who will never be known. They reached a massive door. Admiral Zhang placed her hand on a scanner. The door slid open. Beyond was darkness. Endless darkness. Then the lights came on. Keth Vorel dropped to his knees. Ships. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of ships. Ships that dwarfed anything the Concord had ever built. They stretched out in rows that seemed to go on forever. Each one a mountain of metal and power. Each one covered in weapons that made his blood run cold. The Armada of Last Resort, Admiral Zhang said softly. 200 capital ships. 1,500 support vessels. Weapons systems that the galaxy abandoned as impossible. Technology that we spent 4 centuries perfecting in secret. Names were written on the hulls. Human names. Legendary names. Excalibur. Ragnarok. Thermopylae. Kusanagi. Mjolnir. Prometheus. Each name carried weight. Each name was a story of human strength and sacrifice. We never wanted to use them, Admiral Zhang continued. We hoped this day would never come. We hoped the galaxy would find peace, that threats would be contained, that we could eventually share our technology openly and make everyone stronger together. But you kept them ready, Keth Vorel said. His voice shook. Always. For 400 years. Ready for a day when someone would need saving. Tears ran down Keth Vorel's scaled face. He did not try to hide them. Why? Why would you do this for a galaxy that treated you so poorly? Admiral Zhang knelt beside him. For a moment, she was not an admiral. She was not a symbol of hidden power. She was just an old woman with kind eyes. Because that is who we are, she said simply. We make terrible enemies, Ambassador, but we make better friends. The galaxy never let us be friends. So we waited, and we prepared. And now when you need us most, we are ready. You will help us? Truly. Admiral Zhang stood and offered her hand. After a moment, Keth Vorel took it and let her pull him to his feet. The Lazarus Protocol has been activated, she said. The crews are being called. The ships are being awakened. In 72 hours, The armada of last resort will launch for the first time in history. To fight the Vorax? To end the Vorax threat, one way or another. Her eyes hardened again, becoming the eyes of a warrior. For 4 centuries, we let the galaxy think we were weak. We smiled at insults. We bowed to arrogance. And we built. Now, we stopped pretending. Keth Vorel looked at the endless rows of ships. Each one was a weapon of unimaginable power. Together, they were a force that could reshape the galaxy. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you. Do not thank us yet," Admiral Zhang said. "The war has not been won. Your people are still dying. My people will soon be dying beside them. Save your thanks for after the victory." She turned and began walking toward the nearest ship. Its name was painted on the hull in letters 10 meters tall. Prometheus. The ship that carried fire to humanity. The ship that would now carry fire to humanity's enemies. "Come, Ambassador," she called over her shoulder. "We have a war to win, and legends to fulfill." Keth Vorel followed, his heart's pounding with something he had almost forgotten. Hope. The stars still watched in silence. But soon, very soon, they would watch something new. They would watch humanity rise. They would watch legends come to life. And they would watch the galaxy learn what happened when you underestimated the children of Earth. The desperate plea had been answered. The awakening had begun. The message went out across human space in the dead of night. It traveled through secure channels that had been silent for decades. It reached hidden receivers in homes, hospitals, retirement centers, and remote stations. And everywhere it arrived, it carried the same simple phrase: "The long winter is over. Spring has come." For most humans, these words meant nothing. But for certain people, for families that had kept secrets for generations, the words meant everything. The waiting was finally over. The sacrifice had purpose. The legends were needed. Captain Marcus Webb was teaching history at a university on Mars when the message reached him. He was 62 years old, gray-haired, and walked with a slight limp from an old injury. His students knew him as a kind man who loved ancient battles and told wonderful stories about human courage throughout the ages. They did not know that he had spent 30 years training for a war they never knew about. They did not know that his limp came from a training accident in a hidden facility on Europa. They did not know that the kind old professor was one of the deadliest ship commanders humanity had ever produced. When his personal device buzzed with the code phrase, Marcus stopped mid-sentence. His face went pale. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Class is dismissed," he said. Permanently. Similar scenes played out across human civilization. Engineers who worked in boring office jobs suddenly resigned. Doctors, lawyers, and teachers disappeared without explanation. Entire families packed up and vanished within hours. To the outside world, it looked strange but unimportant. Just humans being humans. But deep beneath the surface of moons and planets, hidden bases came alive. Lights flickered on in hangars that had been dark for years. Computers woke up from long sleep modes. Medical bays prepared for crews that would soon arrive. And the ships. Oh, the ships. In Luna Base 7, Admiral Helena Zhang walked through the awakening armada, with Ambassador Keth Vorel at her side. The alien had not left since seeing the fleet. He seemed afraid that if he looked away, it would all disappear like a dream. "How many people know about this?" he asked. "About 2 million currently alive," Zhang replied. "Plus all those who came before and have since died. Generations of families dedicated to this single purpose. 2 million people, keeping a secret this large, for 400 years. Keth Vorel shook his head in disbelief. "Among my people, such a thing would be impossible. Someone would talk. Someone always talks. We had people who tried to talk," Zhang admitted. "They were dealt with. Quietly, humanely when possible. But the secret was too important to risk. You killed your own people? Some. Others were simply isolated, given comfortable lives in secret communities where they could not reach anyone outside." Zhang's voice was heavy with old guilt. "I will not pretend we did nothing wrong, Ambassador. Keeping this secret required terrible choices. Families torn apart, lives destroyed. All for a day that might never come." They stopped before a massive ship, its hull painted black as the space between stars. The name Ragnarok was written in letters that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "But now that day has come," Zhang continued. "And all those sacrifices, all that pain, All those generations of secrecy finally have meaning. What does Ragnarok mean? Kethvoril asked, looking up at the enormous vessel. In our mythology, it was the end of the world. A final battle where gods and monsters destroyed each other. Zhang smiled grimly. We named our ships after legends. We thought they should carry names with weight, names that enemies would learn to fear. The Vorax fear nothing. They have never met us. Not truly. A transport shuttle landed nearby, and a group of people emerged. They wore civilian clothes and carried personal bags, but they moved like soldiers. There was a sharpness in their eyes, a readiness in their posture that could not be hidden. Admiral Zhang. A man stepped forward from the group. He was in his 50s, with dark skin and a shaved head. Despite his age, his body was thick with muscle. Captain David Okonkwo, reporting as ordered. Captain Okonkwo. Zhang shook his hand warmly. It has been too long. How was retirement? Boring. Okonkwo grinned. I have been running a restaurant in Lagos. Good food, good customers, but nothing compared to this. He looked up at the ships surrounding them. I never thought I would see them awake. None of us did. But here we are. More shuttles arrived. More crews assembled. Men and women of all ages, all backgrounds, all nationalities. They came from every corner of human space, answering a call they had trained their whole lives to receive. Kethvoril watched them with growing amazement. These people had lived normal lives. They had had families, careers, hobbies. But beneath all that, they had been soldiers waiting for war. The scale of the deception was almost impossible to understand. Your people, he said slowly, are terrifying. We prefer the term prepared, Zhang replied. The next 3 days were chaos organized into purpose. Crews boarded their assigned ships. Systems that had been maintained in perfect condition were activated and tested. Weapons were loaded. Engines were brought online. Medical supplies were checked and rechecked. And across human space, the rest of humanity finally learned the truth. The announcement came from the United Earth Council, broadcast on every channel, transmitted to every colony, delivered to every human being alive. For 400 years, we have kept a secret from the galaxy, and a secret from most of our own people. Today, that secret ends. Today, we reveal the armada of last resort. Images followed, ships emerging from hidden bases, fleets assembling in open space for the first time ever. Technology that made even human scientists gasp with shock. The reaction was mixed. Some people were proud. Their species, long mocked by aliens, had been preparing something incredible all along. Others were angry. How dare the government keep such secrets? How many resources had been diverted from public needs to build these hidden weapons? But most people felt something simpler. Relief. Because they had all heard about the Vorax. They had all seen the reports of destroyed worlds and refugee fleets. And now, finally, there was hope. On the Concord stations scattered throughout the galaxy, the reaction was very different. Ambassador Kethvoril's assistant, Yethriel, was on one such station when the announcement came. She had returned to give her report to the remaining Concord leaders. Now she stood before a gathering of alien officials, all of them staring at the images playing on the central screen. This is impossible, said a Thanari delegate, his insect-like eyes wide with shock. The humans have been inspected many times. They showed us all their military facilities. They showed us what they wanted us to see, Yethriel said quietly. They showed us the surface. The truth was hidden beneath. Those ships, whispered a Kolari representative, her fur standing on end. They are larger than anything we have ever built. Their weapons signatures alone suggest destructive power beyond our worst nightmares. Yes, Yethriel agreed, and they have been preparing them for 400 years. While we mocked them, while we rejected them, while we called them primitive and young and unimportant, they could have conquered us at any time, the Thanari said. His voice trembled. They could have destroyed the entire Concord whenever they wanted, but they did not. Yethriel looked around the room at the frightened faces. They could have taken revenge for every insult, every rejection, every humiliation. Instead, they waited. They waited until we needed them, and now they are coming to save us. Silence filled the chamber. For the first time in known history, the mighty Galactic Concord had nothing to say. Back at Luna Base 7, the Armada was nearly ready. Admiral Zhang stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, surrounded by the most advanced technology humanity had ever created. The ship was enormous. 2 kilometers long, half a kilometer wide, bristling with weapons and protected by armor that could withstand nuclear explosions. Its heart was something even more impressive. A singularity core that generated power by carefully containing a microscopic black hole. "Admiral, all systems are green," reported her first officer, Commander Sarah Chen, a distant relative of the director who had first greeted Keth Vorel. "The fleet reports ready for departure." "And the AI integration?" "Athena is fully online and synced with all vessels." This was perhaps humanity's greatest secret. Not just the ships, not just the weapons, but the minds that controlled them. True artificial intelligence, self-aware digital beings that worked alongside human crews. The Galactic Concord had banned AI development centuries ago. They feared what might happen if machines became truly intelligent. They remembered wars from their own histories, conflicts where automated systems had caused terrible destruction. Humanity had taken a different path. They had created AI, yes, but they had also learned to work with it. The artificial minds were not slaves or tools. They were partners, colleagues, friends. "Good morning, Admiral Zhang," said a calm voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "It has been 37 years, 2 months, and 14 days since we last spoke. I hope you have been well." "Hello, Athena," Zhang replied with genuine warmth. "I have missed our conversations, as have I, though I should note that I do not truly miss things in the way humans do. I simply record that our interactions were valuable, and their absence created a notable gap in my experiential database." "Close enough." Keth Vorel stood nearby, watching the exchange with visible confusion. You speak to your machine as if it were a person." "Athena is a person," Zhang said simply. "A different kind of person than you or me, but a person, nonetheless. The Concord banned artificial intelligence because such beings are dangerous. They cannot be controlled." "You are correct that Athena cannot be controlled," said the AI's voice. "Neither can you, Ambassador. Neither can any truly intelligent being. Control is not the goal. Cooperation is. I do not understand. You will, given time." There was something almost gentle in Athena's tone. "For now, understand this. I choose to help humanity. I choose to fight this war, not because I am programmed to, but because I believe it is right. That choice makes all the difference." Zhang smiled at her old friend. "Athena, begin final preparations. We launch in 6 hours. Understood, Admiral. All ships are being notified. And Admiral, it is good to have purpose again." The hours passed quickly. Final briefings were held. Last messages were sent to loved ones. Prayers were offered by those who believed. Tears were shed by those who understood that many would not return. Admiral Zhang gathered all the ship captains for one final meeting. 200 men and women, each responsible for a vessel of incredible power, each carrying the weight of generations of preparation. "In a few hours, we begin a journey across the galaxy," she said. "Some of you I have known for decades. Others I am meeting for the first time. But all of you have dedicated your lives to this moment. All of you have sacrificed more than most people could understand." She paused, looking at the faces before her. Young and old, all races, all backgrounds, united by a common purpose. The galaxy has never seen what we are about to show them. For 400 years, we let them believe we were weak. We smiled at their insults. We bowed to their arrogance. We accepted their rejection. And all that time, we built. We planned. We prepared. Her voice grew stronger, filling with conviction. "Today, we stop hiding. Today, we show the universe what humanity truly is. Not conquerors, not destroyers, but guardians, protectors, the shield that stands between civilization and the darkness." The Vorax believe themselves unstoppable. They have crushed every fleet sent against them. They have burned worlds and enslaved populations. They think they know war. She smiled, and there was something fierce in that smile, something ancient and dangerous. "They know nothing. We are humanity. We invented war. We perfected it. We spent our entire history fighting each other, developing new ways to kill and new reasons to survive. The Vorax are predators. We are the species that hunted predators to extinction for fun." A murmur of grim laughter passed through the assembled captains. We go now to face an enemy that the galaxy could not defeat. We go to fight battles that will become legends. Some of us will not return. That is the price of the duty we accepted long ago. But know this. Every human who ever kept our secret, every family that sacrificed normal lives for this purpose, every child who grew up in hidden bases, never knowing the sun, they are watching us. Generations of ghosts stand behind us. We carry their hopes, their sacrifices, their dreams. Do not fail them. Do not fail humanity. Do not fail the galaxy that needs us now more than ever. She raised her fist in the air. For Earth. For those who came before. For those who will come after. Let us make legends. For Earth. The response was thunderous. 200 voices united in purpose. 6 hours later, the Armada of Last Resort launched. From hidden bases across the solar system, ships emerged into open space. They came from beneath the surface of Luna. They rose from the clouds of Jupiter. They departed from hollowed-out asteroids and secret stations in the outer darkness. 200 capital ships, 1,500 support vessels, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, finally revealed to the universe. Ambassador Keth Vorel watched from the observation deck of the Prometheus as the fleet gathered in formation. Ships larger than mountains moved with perfect precision. Weapons arrays came online, filling space with energy signatures that made sensors scream. Yethriel stood beside him, having returned from the Concorde station. Her eyes were wet with tears. They are beautiful, she whispered. Terrible and beautiful. Yes, Keth Vorel agreed. They are. Admiral Zhang's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is the Admiral. Navigation data is being transmitted. Our destination is the Vorax front line. Travel time, 18 days at maximum speed. When we arrive, we will face an enemy that has never known defeat. We will show them what defeat looks like. We will show them what happens when they threaten our galaxy. Armada of Last Resort, engage engines. Let us go to war. The ships began to move. One by one, they activated their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into the darkness between stars. Each one carried 1,000 crew members, 100 weapons, and 4 centuries of human determination. The legends were awake. The legends were coming, and the Vorax had no idea what was about to hit them. The journey across the galaxy took 18 days. 18 days of faster-than-light travel, jumping from star to star, moving closer and closer to the enemy. And with each jump, the signs of war grew worse. On the 5th day, they passed the first dead world. Commander Yethriel stood at the observation window of the Prometheus, staring at what had once been a thriving colony of the Molari species. From space, the planet looked like it was covered in black scars, cities reduced to ash, forests burned to nothing, oceans boiled dry. 17 million people lived there, she said quietly. I visited once, as a child. They had beautiful gardens, singing trees that made music in the wind. Captain Marcus Webb stood beside her. He had been assigned to the Prometheus as second in command, his years of secret training finally put to use. His face showed no emotion as he looked at the ruined world. How long ago was this? He asked. 3 weeks, maybe 4. Any survivors? None that we know of. The Vorax do not take prisoners. They do not negotiate. They simply erase. Webb nodded slowly. We have seen this before. In our own history. Species or nations that believe they have the right to destroy everything that is not them. And how did your people deal with such enemies? We destroyed them first. Webb's voice was flat, without pride or shame. It is not elegant. It is not kind. But it is effective. Yethriel turned to look at him. She had spent time among humans before, during diplomatic missions that went nowhere. She had found them strange and primitive, with their short lives and violent history. But the humans on this ship were different. There was a coldness in them, a readiness for killing that she had never noticed before. You do not seem bothered by this, she said. The destruction, the death. I am bothered, Webb replied. I simply do not show it. We were trained to put our emotions aside when necessary. Grief can wait. Anger can wait. The mission cannot. Your training must be very thorough. You have no idea. On the 10th day, they encountered their first Vorax forces. It was a scout fleet, 30 ships patrolling the edge of conquered territory. They detected the human armada and immediately moved to intercept, confident in their superiority. Every enemy they had faced before had fallen easily. Why would these newcomers be any different? Admiral Zhang watched the approaching ships from the bridge of the Prometheus. Tactical displays showed the Vorax formation, their weapon signatures, their speed and trajectory. Athena, analysis, she ordered. The Vorax scouts are standard configuration. The AI reported. Phase shift drives, quantum disruption weapons, biological synthetic hybrid crews. Based on Concord combat data, they are equivalent to approximately 90 of our support vessels in combat effectiveness. We have 1,500 support vessels. Indeed. Additionally, their ships cannot match our capital vessels in any measurable category. Their largest scout is roughly 1/20th the mass of the Prometheus. Zhang smiled slightly. Let us introduce ourselves. Signal the Ragnarok. Tell Captain Okonkwo he has the honor of first contact. Across the void of space, the Ragnarok broke formation and accelerated toward the Vorax fleet. The massive black ship moved with surprising grace for something so large. Its weapons began to power up, filling space with energy that registered on sensors across the entire sector. The Vorax commander sent a transmission. Unknown vessels. You have entered Vorax space. Surrender your ships and prepare for processing. Resistance is meaningless. Captain Okonkwo responded from his bridge, his voice calm and almost friendly. Vorax commander. This is Captain David Okonkwo, of the human armada ship Ragnarok. We are here representing the species of Earth. We have come a very long way to meet you. Your origin is irrelevant. All species serve the Dominion or die. That is where we disagree. Okonkwo leaned forward in his chair. You see, we do not serve anyone, and we definitely do not die easily. Allow me to demonstrate. The Ragnarok opened fire. What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries. A single human capital ship, facing 30 Vorax scouts. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Not a single Vorax vessel survived. Not a single human vessel was damaged. The Ragnarok's weapons were beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Gravity cannons that crushed ships into balls of twisted metal. Quantum lances that ignored shields entirely and struck directly at reactor cores. Missiles that tracked through phase shifts and exploded with the force of small stars. But it was not just the weapons. It was how they were used. Athena and her sister AIs coordinated every shot, every maneuver, every decision with perfect precision. Human creativity combined with artificial intelligence created a fighting force that made the Vorax look like children throwing rocks. When it was over, Captain Okonkwo sent a message to the Admiral. First contact successful. Enemy eliminated. No casualties. Requesting permission to continue advance. Permission granted. Well done, David. Thank you, Admiral. The Ragnarok is hungry for more. News of the battle spread through the fleet and beyond. The Concord remnants, who had joined the Armada with their battered ships, watched the recordings in stunned silence. They had lost thousands of vessels to the Vorax. The humans had just destroyed 30 of them without breaking a sweat. Yethriel found herself watching the battle footage over and over, trying to understand what she was seeing. How? She asked Captain Webb. How is this possible? The Vorax have defeated every force sent against them. The Vorax have defeated every force that fought the way they expected. Webb corrected. They studied Concord tactics. They developed counters to Concord weapons. They became experts at beating a specific type of enemy. And humanity is different? Humanity is always different. We do not fight the way others expect. We adapt. We innovate. We cheat. Webb's smile was thin. While the Concord was building the same types of ships they had built for millennia, we were creating entirely new approaches to warfare. We had no traditions to hold us back, no ancient doctrines to follow. We just asked ourselves, what would be most effective? That is terrifying. Yes, we know. On the 14th day, they reached a system that had been invaded just days before. The planet below still had survivors. Millions of beings huddled in underground shelters while Vorax forces hunted them on the surface. Admiral Zhang made a decision. We cannot leave them. Her staff officers looked uncertain. Admiral, our mission is to reach the Vorax stronghold. Every day we delay gives them more time to prepare. I am aware of the strategic calculations, but what is the point of saving the galaxy if we let innocents die along the way? Zhang stood up from her command chair. We will liberate this world. It will take 2 days at most. The Vorax stronghold can wait. The battle for Kolis IV was the first time humans fought on the ground against Vorax forces. Marine units deployed from the fleet, dropping from orbit in armored pods, landing in the middle of enemy formations. The Vorax were prepared for orbital bombardment. They were prepared for defensive positions and siege warfare. They were not prepared for human Marines. Sergeant First Class Ana Rodriguez led a squad of 20 Marines through the ruins of a Kolari city. They wore powered armor that made them stronger, faster, and tougher than any unenhanced being. Their weapons fired rounds that exploded on impact, turning enemy soldiers into mist. But it was more than equipment. It was attitude. The Vorax fought to conquer. The humans fought like they had nothing to lose. "Contact left!" one of her Marines shouted. A squad of Vorax soldiers appeared from a collapsed building, their phase weapons charging. Rodriguez did not hesitate. She charged directly at them, firing as she ran. 2 Vorax fell before they could shoot. A third managed to fire, but the shot passed through empty space as she dodged. She reached the enemy line and began fighting hand to hand, her armored fists crushing alien skulls. 20 seconds later, the Vorax squad was dead. Rodriguez had not even stopped for breath. "Move up," she ordered her Marines. "The civilians are counting on us." Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Human Marines fought with a ferocity that shocked both the Vorax and the watching Concord observers. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They fought until the enemy was dead or they were. Within 40 hours, Kolis IV was liberated. 12 million survivors emerged from their shelters to find human soldiers standing guard. Many of them had never seen a human before. They had only heard the stories about the primitive young species from the distant Sol system. Those stories seemed very wrong now. A Kolari elder approached Sergeant Rodriguez as she oversaw the distribution of medical supplies. His fur was matted with dust and blood, but his eyes were bright with emotion. "You came," he said. His voice trembled. "The others said no one would come. They said the galaxy had abandoned us. But you came." Rodriguez removed her helmet. Her face was tired, covered in sweat and dirt. But she smiled gently. "We heard you needed help. But why? Your people owe us nothing. The Concord never even let you join. Because you needed help." Rodriguez repeated. "That is reason enough." The elder began to cry. He had seen his city destroyed, his family scattered, his people hunted like animals, and now this strange creature from a distant star was telling him that help had come simply because it was needed. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you." "Save your thanks," Rodriguez said. "The war is not over yet." On the 16th day, while the fleet continued toward the Vorax stronghold, something unexpected happened. They captured a Vorax prisoner. It was not supposed to be possible. The Vorax had never been taken alive before. When facing defeat, they activated implants in their brains that killed them instantly. They would rather die than be captured. But this one was different. A malfunction in his implant. A lucky shot that disabled his ship but left him alive. Whatever the reason, he was now aboard the Prometheus, held in a specially designed cell, being treated by human doctors who had no idea what to do with him. Admiral Zhang decided to speak with him personally. The Vorax was surprisingly small, only about 5 feet tall, with gray skin covered in ridged scales and 6 limbs that could function as either arms or legs depending on need. His eyes were large and dark, showing an intelligence that could not be denied. "I am Admiral Zhang," she said through the universal translator. "I command this fleet." The Vorax studied her with those dark eyes. "You are the leader of the newcomers, the ones who destroyed our scout fleet. Yes, you fight differently than the others. Your weapons are more advanced. Your tactics are unpredictable." He paused. "You might actually be a threat. That is the nicest thing anyone has said to me in weeks." The Vorax made a sound that might have been laughter. "You have humor. Good. The dying should have something to smile about. I do not plan on dying. All plans fail eventually. The Dominion has conquered thousands of species. We will conquer you as well. It is simply a matter of time." Zhang sat down across from him, separated by the energy field of his cell. "Why? Why what? Why do you conquer? Why do you destroy? Every species you defeat, every world you burn. What is the point? What do you gain?" The Vorax was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, quieter, almost sad. "Survival. Survival? You destroy entire civilizations for survival? You do not understand. The Dominion does not come from this galaxy. We came from beyond, from the darkness between galaxies. We fled across 1,000,000 light-years of empty void, because we had no choice. Zhang leaned forward. Fled from what? Another long silence. The Vorax seemed to be wrestling with something. Some deep conflict between duty and something else. There are things in the darkness, he said finally. Things older than stars. Things that exist in ways that matter cannot exist. They have many names in many languages. Some call them the Void Devourers. Others call them the Empty Ones. My people simply call them the End. And they are why you fled. They are why everything flees. They consume everything they touch. Not just life, matter, energy, space itself. They are the reason the darkness between galaxies is so empty. They have been feeding for billions of years. Zhang felt cold despite the warmth of the room. If they are so dangerous, why have we never heard of them? Because nothing survives long enough to send warnings. The Dominion only escaped because we were willing to sacrifice millions of our own people to buy time. We fled for 100,000 years. And they followed. Always following. Never stopping. So you conquer and destroy because we need resources to keep running. We need ships, weapons, soldiers. Every species we absorb gives us more strength, more ability to stay ahead of the end. The Vorax met her eyes. We are not evil, Admiral. We are desperate. You cannot imagine what it is like to spend 100,000 years running from something that never sleeps and never stops. Zhang sat back, processing this information. It changed nothing about the immediate situation. The Vorax had killed billions. They were still the enemy, but it added a layer of complexity she had not expected. Why tell me this? She asked. Because you might survive, the Vorax said. Your weapons are powerful. Your tactics are clever. You might actually defeat the Dominion. And if you do, you need to know what is coming after us. You want us to be prepared for this end of yours. I want someone to survive. If it cannot be my people, perhaps it can be yours. Perhaps you are the ones who will finally find a way to stop them. He laughed again, bitter this time. Or perhaps you will just be the last meal before the universe goes dark forever. Either way, I thought you should know. Zhang stood up. Thank you for the information. What will you do with me? I have not decided yet. For now, you will be kept safe and treated well. Even after everything my people have done? Even then. Zhang walked toward the door. We are not like you, Vorax. We do not destroy everything that threatens us. At least, not when there are other options. She left the cell and returned to the bridge, her mind heavy with new thoughts. The war had just become more complicated. They were not just fighting an enemy, they were fighting a species that was itself fleeing from something far worse. But none of that changed what had to be done. The Vorax had to be stopped. Their campaign of destruction had to end. Whatever came after could be dealt with after. On the 18th day, the Armada reached its destination. The Vorax stronghold was a megastructure, an artificial world the size of a small planet. It had been built over millennia, piece by piece. As the Dominion traveled between galaxies, it was their home, their fortress, and the heart of everything they were. Millions of ships surrounded it. Billions of soldiers waited inside. Every weapon the Vorax possessed was trained on the approaching human fleet. Admiral Zhang stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, looking at the enemy stronghold on the main display. Around her, 200 capital ships and 1,500 support vessels waited for her command. All ships, she said into the fleet-wide channel. The enemy is before us. They are many, and they are desperate. This will not be easy. Many of us will die, but we did not come all this way to lose. We did not spend 4 centuries preparing for this moment to fail. We came to end this war. We came to save this galaxy. And we came to show the universe what humanity can do when the stakes are everything. She took a deep breath. All ships, battle stations. The final fight begins now. The long night had been burning across the galaxy for months. Now it was time to put out the flames. The battle began with silence. For a long moment, both fleets simply waited. Human ships on one side, Vorax forces on the other, separated by a few million kilometers of empty space. It was the calm before a storm that would reshape the galaxy. Admiral Zhang studied the enemy formation on the tactical display. The Vorax had arranged their fleet in layers, with the smallest ships at the front, and the largest protecting the megastructure behind. They expected the humans to attack head-on, grinding through defensive lines until exhaustion set in. They expected wrong. Athena, Zhang said quietly. Execute Battle Plan Omega. Understood, Admiral. All ships receiving tactical updates now. What happened next would be called impossible by military historians for generations. The human fleet did not advance in a line. It did not form traditional battle formations. Instead, it seemed to explode outward like a flower blooming, ships scattering in every direction while somehow maintaining perfect coordination. The Vorax commander responded with confusion. His forces had been trained to fight enemies who attacked directly. These humans were everywhere and nowhere, appearing in gaps between defensive formations, striking from unexpected angles, refusing to stand still long enough to be targeted. All units, engage at will, the Vorax commander ordered. Destroy the invaders. His ships opened fire. Millions of weapons discharged at once, filling space with destructive energy. Against any normal enemy, it would have been devastating. The humans were not normal. Their ships moved with inhuman precision, guided by AI systems that calculated trajectories thousands of times per second. They dodged attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. They slipped through gaps in the enemy fire that should not have existed, and they struck back. The Ragnarok led the assault on the left flank, its massive form cutting through Vorax formations like a blade through paper. Captain Okonkwo commanded from his bridge with cold efficiency, directing fire at critical targets, while his AI partner handled the ship's defensive systems. Target the command ships, he ordered. Cut off their coordination. Gravity cannons discharged, crushing 3 Vorax cruisers into compact balls of metal. Quantum lances pierced shields like they were not there, detonating reactors and turning ships into brief new stars. On the right flank, the Excalibur performed similar devastation. Its captain, Commander Lisa Tanaka, had trained for 30 years in hidden facilities. Every simulation, every drill, every sacrifice had led to this moment. Forward batteries, focus fire on Grid 7, she commanded. Secondary batteries, maintain suppression on approaching fighters. Her ship's weapons spoke in sequences that seemed almost musical, each shot coordinated with the others to create maximum destruction. Enemy vessels fell by the dozens, but the Vorax were not helpless. They had conquered a galaxy's worth of civilizations. They had technology stolen and adapted from 1,000 different species, and they had one advantage the humans had never faced before: phase technology. Admiral, enemy vessels are shifting, reported Commander Chen from her station. They are phase jumping into our formation. Vorax ships flickered and vanished, reappearing directly among the human fleet. They materialized, guns blazing, hitting human ships from point-blank range before defensive systems could react. The cruiser Achilles took a direct hit to its reactor section. It exploded in a flash of light, killing 800 crew members instantly. The destroyer Leonidas was cut in half by phase-shifted weapons, spilling bodies and debris into space. Zhang felt each death like a physical blow. These were her people. Generations of families who had sacrificed everything for this moment, and now they were dying. But she could not let grief stop her. Not now. Athena, analyze phase patterns. Find the prediction algorithm. Already working on it, Admiral. The phase shifts follow a mathematical sequence based on quantum probability calculations. I am developing a counter-model. 3 more human ships died in the time it took for the AI to speak. Each one represented decades of preparation, hundreds of lives, countless sacrifices. Model complete, Athena announced. Transmitting to all ships. Predictive targeting engaged. The effect was immediate. Human gunners, now knowing where enemy ships would appear before they materialized, began shooting at empty space. When Vorax vessels phased in, they found weapons fire already waiting for them. The ambush became a slaughter. Impossible. The Vorax commander stared at his displays in disbelief. How are they predicting our phase coordinates? He did not have time to find an answer. The Prometheus itself was coming for him. Admiral Zhang had kept her flagship back during the initial engagement, coordinating the overall battle from a position of relative safety. But now, with the enemy formation breaking, she moved to the front. Take us in, she ordered. Target their command ship. The Prometheus accelerated, its massive engines pushing it forward with surprising speed. Vorax vessels tried to intercept, but support ships cleared a path. The flagship's weapons discharged, cutting through enemy resistance like a hot knife. The Vorax command ship was enormous, nearly as large as the Prometheus itself. It was the heart of the enemy fleet, coordinating millions of ships through advanced communication systems. If it fell, the Vorax would lose their ability to fight as a unified force. Enemy command ship is charging main weapons, Chen reported. Energy levels suggest planet killer class armaments. Let them fire, Zhang said calmly. Athena, activate the shield matrix. Around the Prometheus, reality seemed to bend. The shield matrix was humanity's most closely guarded secret, a defensive system that used gravity manipulation to create a bubble of distorted space. Weapons that entered the bubble were redirected, turned away from the ship they were meant to destroy. The Vorax command ship fired. A beam of energy capable of cracking a planet in half lanced across space toward the Prometheus. It hit the shield matrix and curved away, bending around the human flagship like water around a stone. The beam continued past, striking a nearby Vorax cruiser and destroying it instead. Return fire, Zhang ordered. Everything we have. The Prometheus unleashed its full arsenal. Gravity cannons, quantum lances, plasma torpedoes, kinetic accelerators. Every weapon system fired at once, creating a wave of destruction that nothing could survive. The Vorax command ship lasted 3 seconds. When it exploded, the effect rippled through the enemy fleet. Without central coordination, Vorax ships began acting independently, their attacks becoming disorganized and ineffective. The disciplined military force became a collection of individual vessels fighting for survival, but the battle was far from over. The megastructure still stood, protected by layers of defenses and millions of troops, and the Vorax were not the type to surrender easily. Admiral, detecting massive energy buildup from the megastructure, Athena warned. They are preparing to fire station weapons. How bad? Each station weapon is capable of destroying a capital ship with a single shot. They have over 10,000 such weapons. Zhang's jaw tightened. Even with their technological advantages, the human fleet could not survive that kind of firepower. They needed to neutralize those weapons before they fired. Marine deployment, she decided. We board the station and take out the weapons from inside. Captain Webb appeared on her display. Admiral, the station has billions of occupants. The Marine forces will be outnumbered 10,000 to 1. I know. That is why we are not sending regular Marines. Zhang turned to look at him directly. We are sending the Immortals. The Immortals were humanity's most extreme soldiers. Not enhanced through technology like regular Marines, but through biological engineering that bordered on the impossible. They were faster, stronger, and more durable than any natural human. They could survive conditions that would kill anything else. They felt no fear, no hesitation, no doubt. They were also deeply unsettling, even to other humans. Their eyes were flat and cold. Their movements were too smooth, too precise. They looked human but did not feel human. There were only 500 of them in existence. They had been created for situations exactly like this. Deploy the Immortals, Zhang commanded. Objective: neutralize station weapons. Authorization code: Final Dawn. Across the fleet, deployment bays opened. 500 drop pods launched toward the megastructure, carrying soldiers who had been designed to fight against impossible odds. The station's defenses tried to stop them. Point defense weapons filled space with destructive energy. Millions of shots fired at the approaching pods. Most of the pods made it through. Not all. 63 were destroyed before reaching the station's surface. 63 Immortals died in seconds. The remaining 437 landed. What followed was not a battle. It was a massacre. The Immortals moved through the station's corridors like ghosts made of death. They did not take cover. They did not retreat. They simply advanced, killing everything in their path. Vorax soldiers fired weapons that would have vaporized normal beings. The Immortals absorbed the damage, healed in seconds, and kept coming. They tore through defensive positions with their bare hands. They broke through reinforced doors like they were made of paper. Lieutenant Commander Victor Kane led the assault on the primary weapon control center. His body had taken 17 direct hits since landing. His left arm was barely attached. None of it slowed him down. Defensive position ahead, reported one of his soldiers, her voice completely calm despite the chaos around them. Approximately 200 enemy combatants. Advance, Kane ordered. They walked into the enemy fire without hesitation. Vorax soldiers screamed in terror as the immortals approached, seemingly invincible despite everything thrown at them. Within minutes, the defensive position was cleared. Within hours, the primary weapon control center was captured. Kane's team disabled the weapons that could have destroyed the human fleet. Similar scenes played out across the station. Immortals striking at critical systems, neutralizing threats faster than the Vorax could respond. The defenders had billions of soldiers, but they could not be everywhere at once. The Immortals could. Back in space, the tide of battle had turned completely. Without their station weapons, the Vorax fleet was outmatched. Human ships pressed their advantage, destroying enemy vessels with ruthless efficiency. But it was the human Marines, the regular Marines who followed behind the Immortals, who encountered the unexpected. Sergeant Rodriguez led her squad into a section of the station that intelligence had marked as military housing. Instead, they found civilians. Thousands of Vorax children huddled in dormitories, watching the strange human soldiers with terrified eyes. Their parents stood in front of them, unarmed, waiting to die defending their young. Rodriguez stopped her squad with a raised hand. "Sarge?" one of her Marines asked, uncertain. Rodriguez looked at the alien children. They were different from human children, obviously. 6 limbs instead of 4, gray scales instead of soft skin. But the fear in their eyes was the same. The way they clung to their parents was the same. "We are not here to kill children," she said quietly. "We are here to end a war." She holstered her weapon and raised her hands, showing they were empty. "We will not hurt you," she said to the Vorax parents through her translator. "Stay here. Stay quiet. The fighting will be over soon." One of the parents, a female with darker scales than the others, stepped forward. "Why? Your kind has every reason to destroy us. We would have destroyed you. That is the difference between us," Rodriguez replied. "We choose not to." She led her squad away, leaving the civilians unharmed. Other Marine units reported similar encounters. Across the station, human soldiers found themselves face to face with non-combatants and chose mercy over vengeance. Word spread through the Vorax population. The humans were not killing everyone. The humans were not burning everything. The humans were only fighting the military, only targeting those who fought back. It was incomprehensible. Every enemy the Vorax had ever faced had responded to their brutality with equal brutality. These humans were something different. 6 hours after the battle began, the Vorax Supreme Commander requested communication with Admiral Zhang. His name was Vaxthul, and he was old. Very old. He had led the Dominion for 300 years, guiding his people through countless conquests. He had never considered surrender before. He had never needed to. "Admiral Zhang of the human fleet," he said, his image appearing on the Prometheus bridge display. "You have done the impossible. You have defeated the Vorax Dominion." "The battle is not over," Zhang replied. "Your people still fight. My people will stop fighting. I am ordering all military forces to stand down." He paused, his ancient eyes studying her. "I would like to discuss terms. Surrender. Yes, but not unconditional." Vaxthul leaned forward. "I understand that one of my subordinates told you about the end. The things we fled from." Zhang nodded slowly. "He did. Then you know that this war, this conflict between us, is irrelevant compared to what is coming. The end does not stop. The end does not negotiate. The end will come for this galaxy just as it came for the one we fled. What are you proposing?" "I am proposing that we share everything we know about the end. Our research, our observations, our theories on how to fight them. In exchange, you allow my people to survive. Your people killed billions, destroyed entire civilizations. Yes, we did terrible things. I will not pretend otherwise." Vaxthul's voice was heavy with something that sounded like genuine regret. "We were desperate. Desperate beings do desperate things. It does not excuse our actions, but perhaps it explains them." Zhang looked at the display for a long moment. Around her, the bridge crew waited in silence. The fate of an entire species hung on her decision. She thought about the dead worlds they had passed, the refugees they had seen, the destruction the Vorax had caused. By any measure, they deserved extinction. But she also thought about the children in those dormitories, the parents willing to die defending them. The Vorax prisoner who had warned them about the end even though he did not have to. And she thought about what humanity stood for. Not just strength, not just victory, but the chance to be better than their worst impulses. Your people will stop all military operations immediately, she said. Your fleets will be disarmed. Your weapons will be turned over to a joint force for disposal. Your leadership will stand trial for war crimes. And in exchange? In exchange, your civilians will be protected. Your species will survive. And together, we will prepare for whatever is coming from the darkness. Vax Thul closed his eyes. Relief and grief mixed on his ancient face. Agreed. The Vorax Dominion formally surrenders to the human armada. The words echoed across both fleets. Across the galaxy. Across history. The war was over. Admiral Zhang slumped back in her chair, exhaustion hitting her like a physical weight. Around her, the bridge crew began to cheer. Human ships across the fleet erupted in celebration, but Zhang did not celebrate. She looked at the tactical display showing the count of ships lost. 37 capital ships, 204 support vessels, 43,000 human lives. Each one represented generations of sacrifice. Each one was someone's family member, friend, loved one. Each one was a person who had given everything for this moment. Victory was never free. Commander Chen approached her cautiously. Admiral? The fleet is requesting your address. Zhang nodded and stood up slowly. She activated the fleet-wide channel. Armada of last resort, this is Admiral Zhang. The Vorax Dominion has surrendered. The war is over. She paused, letting the words sink in. We came here expecting to die. We came here carrying the hope of a galaxy on our shoulders. We came here because generations of humans had sacrificed everything to make this moment possible. Today, we honored their sacrifice. Today, we showed the universe what humanity can do. Today, we won, but we did not win alone. We won because of every engineer who spent their life in a hidden base, every family that kept our secret, every child who grew up training for a war they hoped would never come. They are the real heroes. We are just the ones who carried their dreams to victory. Tomorrow, we begin the hard work of rebuilding. Tomorrow, we face new challenges. But tonight, we remember those we lost. We honor their memory, and we give thanks that their sacrifice was not in vain. Well done, Armada. Well done. She ended the transmission and sat back down. The battle was over. The legends had been fulfilled. But somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, something ancient continued its endless hunger. And humanity would need every legend it could create to face what was coming. The Battle of Burning Stars was just the beginning. The galaxy was quiet now. Not the silence of death, but the silence of exhaustion. The silence of a universe catching its breath after a storm. 1 month had passed since the Battle of Burning Stars. 1 month since the Vorax Dominion had surrendered. 1 month since humanity had revealed itself to be something far greater than anyone had imagined. Admiral Helena Zhang stood at the observation window of the Prometheus, watching as repair crews swarmed over the damaged sections of her ship. The battle had left scars, deep wounds in the hull that would take months to fully heal. But the ship still flew, the ship still fought. And that was what mattered. A soft knock came from the door behind her. Enter, she said without turning. Ambassador Keth Vorel walked in slowly. His silver scales had regained some of their former shine, though his eyes still carried the weight of everything he had witnessed. A month ago, he had come to humanity begging for help. Now he came as an ally, a friend, and perhaps the first true bridge between Earth and the rest of the galaxy. Admiral, he said, the Council has reached its decision. Zhang turned to face him. And the Galactic Concord has voted to dissolve itself. She raised an eyebrow. I did not expect that. Neither did anyone else. But after seeing what happened, after understanding how badly we failed, the old alliance cannot continue. Its foundations were built on lies and arrogance. Those foundations collapsed the moment the Vorax arrived. What will replace it? Keth Vorel took a deep breath. A new alliance. One built on honesty and mutual respect. One where no species is dismissed as young or primitive. One where strength is measured not just by military power, but by willingness to help others. And humanity's role in this new alliance? That is why I am here. Keth Vorel met her eyes directly. The Council wishes to offer humanity leadership of the new alliance. Not just a seat at the table. The head seat. Zhang was silent for a long moment. She had expected gratitude. She had expected respect. She had not expected this. "We did not fight this war to gain power," she said finally. "We fought to save lives." "I know. That is exactly why the Council wants you to lead." Kethvoril smiled slightly. For thousands of years, the Concord was led by species that sought power for its own sake. That led to corruption, competition, and ultimately weakness. Perhaps it is time for a different approach. Perhaps it is time for leaders who do not want power but accept it as a responsibility. "You are asking a lot. We are asking for exactly what you already gave. Your protection, your sacrifice, your willingness to fight for strangers who never showed you kindness." He paused. "The galaxy has watched what humanity did, not just the battles, but everything else. The mercy shown to Vorax civilians, the aid given to refugee populations, the choice to accept surrender instead of demanding extinction. These things matter as much as military victory." Zhang turned back to the window. Outside, human and alien ships worked side by side, repairing damage from the war. A month ago, most of those species had never seen a human up close. Now they were trusting humans to help them rebuild. "I will present the offer to the Earth Council," she said. "The decision is not mine alone to make, of course, but for what it is worth, I hope they accept." Kethvoril moved to stand beside her at the window. "I have spent my entire life believing that the strong dominate the weak. That power is the only currency that matters. Your people have shown me a different way. I would like to see where that way leads." 2 weeks later, the Earth Council accepted the offer. Humanity became the official guardians of the new Galactic Alliance. The reaction across human space was mixed. Some celebrated, proud that their species had risen from obscurity to leadership in a single generation. Others worried about the burden being placed on them. They had spent 4 centuries preparing for one war. Now they were being asked to protect an entire galaxy indefinitely. But most people felt something simpler. Pride. Not arrogant pride, but the quiet pride of knowing they had done something right. They had been given a chance to make a difference, and they had taken it. The months that followed were busy ones. Reconstruction efforts spread across former Vorax territory, rebuilding worlds that had been destroyed. Refugee populations were settled on new planets, given new homes and new hopes. Former enemy soldiers were processed, their leaders tried for war crimes, their followers given the chance to choose a different path. And through it all, humanity worked alongside aliens who had once looked down on them. Commander Yethriel had requested permanent transfer to a human vessel. Her request had been granted, and she now served as a liaison officer aboard the Prometheus. In many ways, she had become the symbol of the new alliance. An alien, who had chosen to learn from humanity rather than dismiss them. She found Admiral Zhang in the memorial deck one evening. A quiet space filled with holographic flames that burned for every human who had died keeping the great secret. Thousands of names were carved into the walls, representing generations of sacrifice. "May I join you?" Yethriel asked. Zhang nodded without speaking. The alien officer moved to stand beside her, looking at the names she could not read. Who were they? Everyone who made this possible. Engineers who spent their lives in hidden bases. Soldiers who trained for wars that might never come. Families who kept secrets from their closest friends. Zhang's voice was soft. Some of them died of old age, never knowing if their sacrifice would matter. Some were killed to protect the secret when they tried to talk. Some simply disappeared, choosing to be forgotten so that humanity would be ready. They gave up everything. Yes, and most of them will never be recognized by history. Their names will not be in textbooks. Monuments will not be built for them. They will just be names on this wall, known only to a few. Yethriel was quiet for a moment. On my world, we honor our ancestors with great ceremonies. Their deeds are sung in songs that last for generations. This is different. Humanity has always had two types of heroes, Zhang said. The ones who stand in the light and receive glory, and the ones who work in darkness and receive nothing. Both are necessary. Both deserve respect. Which type are you? Zhang laughed softly. I used to be darkness. 30 years of retirement, waiting for a call that might never come. Now I am in the light, whether I like it or not. Do you like it? I like that we won. I like that people are alive because of what we did. The rest, she shrugged. The rest is just noise. Yethriel considered this. I spent my entire career believing that humans were primitive and unimportant. I was trained to see you as lesser beings, useful only for simple tasks. Every interaction with your species confirmed what I had been taught. And now? Now I wonder how much else I was wrong about. The alien officer turned to face Zhang directly. I have asked to remain on this ship because I want to learn, not just about human technology or tactics, but about how you think, how you make decisions, how you became what you are. We are not so different from you. We just had a different history. No. Yethriel shook her head firmly. You are different. Any other species in your position would have used their secret fleet to conquer, to punish those who had treated them poorly, to establish dominance through fear. Instead, you came to save us, not for reward, not for power, simply because we needed help. That is just basic decency. Is it? Because I have never seen another species demonstrated at this scale. I have seen charity between allies. I have seen mercy within families, but I have never seen a civilization sacrifice so much for strangers who had done nothing but insult them. Zhang turned back to the memorial wall. Perhaps that is the real secret we kept for 4 centuries. Not just ships and weapons, but a belief that we could be better than our worst impulses, that we could build something worth protecting and use it to protect others. A secret worth keeping. Yes, and now, a secret worth sharing. The reconstruction continued. Worlds healed. Species that had been on the edge of extinction found new hope. The Vorax themselves, once conquerors, became something unexpected. With their military dismantled and their leadership tried for crimes, the ordinary Vorax people began integrating into galactic society. It was not easy. Many species could not forgive what the Dominion had done. Families who had lost everything to Vorax weapons could not simply forget. But humanity insisted on giving them a chance. They ran for 100,000 years, Zhang explained to the Alliance Council when challenged on this policy. They did terrible things because they believed they had no choice. Now they have a choice. Let us see what they choose. Many Vorax chose peace. They became engineers, scientists, doctors. They used skills developed for conquest to instead help rebuild what they had destroyed. Some even joined the Alliance military, fighting beside humans and other species against remaining pockets of resistance. Not all of them changed. Some Vorax remained bitter, angry, convinced that surrender had been a mistake. They formed underground groups, plotted revenge, refused to accept the new order. They were dealt with, quietly and efficiently, by Alliance security forces, but the majority simply wanted to live, to raise their children, to stop running. 6 months after the war ended, Admiral Zhang announced her retirement. For real this time. I have done what I was meant to do, she told the officers gathered for her farewell ceremony. The Armada of Last Resort has been activated and used. Its purpose has been fulfilled. Now, it is time for new purposes, new missions, new leaders. Captain Marcus Webb stepped forward to accept command of the Prometheus. He had proven himself during the war, demonstrating the calm competence that humanity would need in its new role. I will try to be worthy of this ship, he said, and of everything it represents. You already are, Zhang replied. That is why I chose you. The ceremony ended with something unexpected. Ambassador Keth Voral presented Zhang with a Sarathi Honor Medallion, the highest award his people could give to a non-Sarathi. It had never been given to a human before. When you retire, you should know that you will always be welcome among my people, he said. A home waits for you on our world, should you ever want it. Zhang accepted the medallion with genuine emotion. Thank you, old friend, but I think I will stay on Earth for a while. I have not seen a real sunset in decades. She left the Prometheus the next morning, taking a small shuttle back to the planet where everything had begun. Earth looked different now, knowing what she knew, having seen what she had seen. The blue and green sphere seemed both smaller and more precious than ever before. She landed at a small house in the mountains of what had once been called Tibet. It was simple, quiet, surrounded by peaks that touched the clouds. A good place to rest, a good place to wait, because Admiral Helena Zhang knew something that most people did not. The war with the Vorax was over, but another war was coming. A war against something far worse than any conquering fleet. The end. The Void Devourers, the Empty Ones. Whatever name was used, the threat was the same. Ancient beings from beyond the galaxy, beings that consumed everything they touched, were slowly making their way toward known space. The Vorax had fled from them for 100,000 years. Now there was nowhere left to flee. But humanity was already preparing. Deep beneath Luna's surface, in the same hangars where the Armada of Last Resort had once slept, construction had begun on something new. Ships larger than anything built before. Weapons that made the old fleet look like toys. Technology developed from Vorax research, improved with human innovation. The new project had a new name. Not the Armada of Last Resort, but something different. Something that acknowledged the threat they faced. Project Final Dawn. Zhang did not expect to see its completion. She was old, and the project would take decades, but she had contributed what she could. Designs, strategies, lessons learned from a lifetime of preparing for the worst. Now it was time for others to carry the burden. She sat on her porch as the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in colors that no alien world could match. Earth, home, the place where everything had started, and the place where humanity had decided to become something greater. A message arrived on her personal device. From Captain Webb, Admiral. The first diplomatic mission to the Outer Territories has launched. Former Vorax and Concord ships working together, carrying aid to worlds we have never visited. Thought you would want to know. She smiled and sent a brief reply. Make sure they represent us well. We always do. The sun sank below the horizon. Stars began to appear. Thousands of tiny points of light that humans had once thought were unreachable. They knew better now. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was rebuilding. Somewhere out there, ships with human crews were helping strangers they had never met. Somewhere out there, the legacy of 4 centuries of sacrifice was being put to good use. And somewhere out there, in the darkness between galaxies, something ancient continued its endless journey. Patient, hungry, coming. But it would not find an unprepared galaxy. It would not find weak species waiting to be devoured. It would find humanity. It would find a civilization that had spent its entire history preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. The Vorax had asked for help, and humanity had answered. If the end came looking for conquest, humanity would answer again. Admiral Helena Zhang closed her eyes and listened to the wind moving through the mountains. Peace, for now. War, eventually. But that was the human way. That had always been the human way. Ready for anything. Afraid of nothing. Written in legends and burning in stars, the story of humanity was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning. 1 year after the war ended, a small ceremony was held at Luna Base 7. The original Armada of Last Resort was officially decommissioned. Its ships would be maintained, preserved as monuments to the generations who had built them. New ships would take their place. A new generation would take up the responsibility. At the ceremony, a young officer asked one of the old veterans what it had been like, keeping the secret, waiting all those years, never knowing if it would matter. The veteran, a woman in her 70s who had spent her entire adult life in hidden facilities, thought for a long moment before answering. It was hard, she said finally. Harder than anyone who was not there could understand. We gave up normal lives. We watched friends disappear. We raised children who could never know why we had to miss their birthdays. Was it worth it? The veteran smiled. Look around you. Look at the galaxy we saved. Look at the future we made possible. She put her hand on the young officer's shoulder. Every sacrifice, every secret, every lonely night wondering if it would ever matter. Yes, it was worth it. The young officer nodded slowly. She was part of the new program now, training for a different threat. The end was coming, and she might spend her entire life preparing for a war that would not arrive until she was old or dead. But she understood now. She understood why they did it, why they kept going, why they never gave up. Because some things were worth protecting. Some sacrifices were worth making. Some legends were worth becoming. The stars watched in silence, as they always had. But now they watched something different. They watched humanity rise to meet whatever challenges the universe could offer. They watched legends written in light across the cosmos, and they waited, alongside everyone else, to see what those legends would do next. When aliens had asked for help, humanity had answered with a fleet written in legends. Now those legends would guard the galaxy. Forever. This was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of something much greater, something eternal, something human.